Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for Zoom at 8. My name is Julianne Peterson, and I'm with Old Capital Lending. And we do this every Tuesday night. We are here for Zoom at 8. We've been here for over 2 years. So this is not just a COVID pop-up deal. We have been here. We've closed 7 loans within this community. So it's pretty special. And, you know, Rich, who's going to be with us tonight to speak to us, was also part of one of the first Zoom at 8 audiences. So we're excited. Rich is a good friend of mine, and we're really looking forward to hearing Rich's professional position in multifamily. So a little bit about us. Old Capital has been in business for 35 years. We close about $1 billion a year, and there's only about 11 of us. So we're doing a lot of deals. We started in Texas. And by the way, there is life outside of Texas. I'm here to tell you, we go nationwide. So don't be thinking that you can't find a deal outside of the great state of Texas. Now, while I live in San Diego, I do no business in the great state of California, said nobody. But we spend a lot of time in Atlanta, North and South Carolina, Huntsville, Alabama, Augusta, Georgia. We see a lot coming out of Michigan, Tennessee. I mean, lots and lots of great places to be buying. And as you saw and heard last week with Chris Nebenzal, I think he shared a lot of powerful information that the rents are up. Average of 8.3% on average across the nation. But there are other communities that are up at 15%. So don't be stuck in Texas. There are other great communities. So if you are looking for a loan, and many of us are here trying to figure out how do I fit into the syndication model, I would love the opportunity to provide a debt quote for you. And we only need your T12 rent roll if you've got an OM, offering memorandum, as well as a analyzing tool. I can go ahead and give you a quote. Right now, you know, agency has always been, over the last 5 or 8 years, has been the gold standard. But because the prices are so high and cap rates are so condensed, we're seeing a lot more in bridge lending. So when it comes to bridge, we're looking into the future. So unless you have the deal under your belt in a signed LOI, we really give you high-level indications. So feel free, if you are working on an opportunity where maybe bridge is a better execution, I too can answer those questions for you. It's real important to understand that with bridge lending, you can roll in the rehab. You can pay the high prices, and God love you, I hope you can execute, but you know, in 3 years, you want to have a stabilized asset that you can sell or you can refinance into agency. So all of that information is super critical to being able to utilize this amazing tool of a bridge loan. So I'm happy to have those conversations. Without further ado, thank you all for joining me again, Julie with Old Capital Lending. And tonight I'm excited to introduce you to a friend and a colleague of mine who I've known through the Michael Blanc education program. Richard and I were met there and have had great conversations, and he's spoken with us in the past year, I think 1.5 years, can't remember. But Rich Trepanier is the president and co-founder of Gage Multifamily Services. It's a Texas-based multifamily renovation general contractor. With over 15 years of multifamily renovation leadership experience, Rich has successfully produced over 1,200 multifamily renovation projects throughout the United States. With special focus on working with investors during the acquisition phase of an asset, Gage Multifamily Services will partner with the acquisition team to provide their expertise and services to ensure proper budgeting, due diligence, and construction management of the value-add renovations. Rich lives with his wife in Austin and with his 2 kids, Reese and Lucas, who are back in school. just like mine. So
Yes.
I so appreciate you taking time, Rich, to join us. You are a wealth of knowledge, and you kind of have changed a little bit over, let's say, the last 18 months. Your focus has changed a little bit. You are now really getting into a GP position. How many have you closed so far of your own assets?
Yeah, we have 4 assets in Alabama, and so up and down Alabama. So we have a couple in Huntsville, one in Birmingham, and then also one in just outside of, just south of Birmingham is a good way to put it. So
yeah, so he is doing it. He's doing the daily construction management and due diligence. So I'm sure we're going to learn about that. But he has his feet in his hand and his feet, his whole body in GP as well as a multifamily owner syndicator.
Yeah. And
actually, you're doing JV, right? You're doing JV.
Yeah, we've JV'd everything to date. But I guess before we start, I'd echo, the relationships that you build, making sure that you work with individuals that you get along with. You're like-minded, like everybody says. We on my team, we focus in different areas, right? And so I handle asset management. Somebody else handles. Candace handles. I handle construction management. Candace handles asset management. We have an acquisitions and disposition contact as well, and so we work really well together. We enjoy working with each other. We enjoy each other's company, and so far, so it's been great. And we've closed 4 deals, and we're looking to do more by the end of the year.
And by the way, you're not even in the same state, are you, with any of them?
No. So Candace lives in Alabama. Stuart and Jeremy live in Virginia, and I'm here in Austin, Texas. And so,
yeah. So that's
Zoom Zoom has changed everything, right? And so.
Absolutely. Well, I am excited to have you talk to us about your renovation trends, what you're seeing.
Sure.
And then also if you would touch on your some of the projects that you've come across, the successes that you've had. Also want to make sure that everybody gives Rich his attention. So if you go up to the top left hand or right hand corner, it says view, go to speaker view, then you can give him all your attention, and he's got a lot of good stuff. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Rich. Thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me. There's going to be some tidbits in this presentation as well. If you stick around to the end, I'll help with some budgeting of some interior renovations as well. But as Julie mentioned, I think I did about a year ago. I think it was right during COVID. And so that presentation was about selecting a general contractor partner and budgeting. And so this one we're moving on as we bust out of 2020 and into 2021, obviously, looking into where we are today and what trends are looking like today and beyond. And so I will, Julie, you can see the screen, correct?
I can. Good. That's perfect.
Wonderful.
Yep,
okay,
perfect.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, just table of contents, discussion topics. As I mentioned, we'll go in a little bit about me. We'll talk about current state, 2020 versus 2021. Julie mentioned about the motel conversion earlier, so we'll talk in detail about the large motel conversion we did here in Austin, Texas during COVID. And I'll also provide some tips and findings. Then I'll mention some additional trends. What have we seen from 2020 to 2021? What are several investors doing here in Central Texas? And what you can apply to your investment properties. I mentioned value add budgeting. I'll give you some interior value add budgets as well, give you some tips and tricks there. And then of course, I'll let you have my contact information as well. And so about me, as Julie mentioned, president and co-founder of Gage Multifamily Services. I own and operate Gage Multifamily Services with my twin brother, Robert. He is, during a normal work day, during business hours, he sits right across the hall from me. And he runs production for the company, and I'm in charge of administrative and business development. It works out really well. We're twins. We think very much alike. Julie mentioned 15 years. I guess I didn't update this slide, but yes, it's been 15 years in multifamily renovation. I started in St. Louis, Missouri doing multifamily renovation. And after my wife finished her training, we moved down to Austin, Texas about 11 years ago. And so again, based in Austin, Texas, we have completed projects from east to west coast. We've done interior renovations in Los Angeles, California. We've done interior renovations in Louisiana, roofs in Minnesota. And so we've gone from coast to coast. Through Gage, we've completed about 850 multifamily renovation projects during the life cycle of Gage. So for about 7 years now for Gage Multifamily. We only focus on multifamily renovation. We don't do any new construction in multifamily, no development. We don't do commercial white box build outs. It's straight multifamily renovation, interior and exterior, anything renovation wise on a multifamily property we can handle. Julie mentioned that our focus is on the multifamily investor, owner, and operators, and that's 100% correct. We focus on reaching out early on during the acquisition phase of a property, and we want to get involved with you. We want to assist with your budgeting. We want to assist with your due diligence. We work with owners and operators. We generally don't call on fee management companies. We want to work with the actual decision makers on a property. And again, I'm very similar to you. I'm passively invested here in Austin, Texas in a number of deals. And as we talked a little bit as well, active investor up and down Alabama as well. We're active JV property owners. So current state of multifamily CAPX renovation kind of from 2020 to 2021. It's a complete 180. And so if I was doing this presentation a year ago, I talk about the doldrum and where we were, but it has been a complete 180. We've gone from in 2020, we've gone from only emergency repairs because everyone was holding on to the reserves and they were holding on to their CAPX funds to potentially pay for past due rent, pay their lending, their debt service. And so now it's gone to CAPX, and more CAPX. And so it is a record revenue year for many vendors, just like myself, in the industry. And the ownership is pushing CAPX renovations to take advantage of these very aggressive rent increase. Julie mentioned earlier, 8% rent increase. This year alone in Austin, Texas, it is not uncommon to see 15 to 20% in rent increase from 2020 to 2021. And so they're pushing these CAPX because they need to stay competitive with the properties around them who are also advertising for similar type units, similar type amenities as well. I mentioned a complete 180 is an understatement. Where we left off, ownership pushing CAPX renovation to take advantage of the aggressive rent increase. As I mentioned, it is so competitive out there from a leasing standpoint. Multifamily owners and operators are just pushing the CAPX to try to take advantage of that rent increase. Next slide. Increase in demand of the renovation project is also, and many of you might be seeing this in your local investments, is causing labor shortages. When we have labor shortages in the industry, obviously pricing goes up for your renovations, and we've seen that when we hard bid projects or scopes of work to subcontractors, and I'm sure folks might be seeing it elsewhere as well. Not only hiring frenzy throughout the industry, this spans across the industry. This spans hiring frenzy in property management, on the vendor side, and all the supporting companies that support the multifamily industries as well. Lastly, social media continues to have a high presence to reach out to potential clients, vendors, and residents. We've seen this more now due to COVID, really pushing social media to engage with potential customers. Next slide, Julie. So Julie mentioned a little bit about the large motel conversion project that we did. And so to the right of the text, you see a couple of photos. This is a 1970s former Travelodge motel here in Austin, Texas. We converted it into Centro Studio Apartments. It is a 6-unit traditional breezeway outside motel, again, 1970s construction. This project was a $7.7 million renovation project in contract value. We converted it from a 300-unit motel into 307-unit studio apartments. So there was some additional storage and some kitchens that we repurposed and made into units as well to get to that higher number of units. Property was vacant for a number of years prior to the renovation start. And so You can see from the photos, mattresses outside. You can see overgrown landscaping. There was a homeless problem in this property before we started and during the construction as well. It took a while for the homeless to get removed from the property, actually, and stay removed from the property. We began this project before COVID, so in October 2019, and we pushed through substantial completion. It did take longer than expected, obviously, due to COVID, and even in the city of Austin, building inspectors were working remotely as well. So it did extend a little bit further, but we did get substantial completion and certificate of occupancy in February 2021. So next slide here, Julie, shows a couple photos of the quality of the community when we entered. And so the property essentially was just shuttered. And so all furniture remained. They just locked the doors and drove the trucks away, essentially. And then the homeless came in and took over. This photo here is a commonplace of what we saw when we took the property over and when we started construction on the first day. All that furniture had to be moved out, had to be disposed of before we can start any of our work. In terms of interior renovations, yes, a good sizable amount of the project was spent towards the interior renovation, so $9,000 per unit. This is a traditional motel, so it isn't like your in-town suites where there is a small kitchenette. We had to bring all those utilities in. We had to bring in a brand new kitchen into the units. It was a 1970s build, so it wasn't up to standard for City of Austin's electrical code. So we had to bring in full electrical system. And so that value was about $2.8 million, I believe. And essentially we brought it in from the City of Austin transformer. And so we had to run all new wire, all new cable, all new distribution panels throughout the community to power it back up and running. And of course, as well, a 1970s asset doesn't have sprinklers. And so we had to bring in a brand new sprinkler system into the community as well, all new fire suppression and alarm system. Complete roofing system on all 6 roofs. We completed exterior paint and carpentry, stucco repairs as well. We also did a complete hotel lobby conversion into a hotel lobby and conference center, converted into a leasing center, a business center, and a fitness center. So
I'm curious, where
Sure.
I'm curious about the kitchens. We're probably going to talk about that, but I mean, that right there is a huge cost.
Yep, absolutely. And so next slide, I think you'll see a couple pictures of completed kitchens, right? So in this community, we went from motel rooms into studio apartments. So they're roughly 300 to 350 square feet. So they are about as efficient of an efficiency unit as you can get to, right? So what you're looking at is essentially an 8-foot long kitchen base and wall cabinet kitchen. And so, but we were able to bring in a microwave and then also a 2-burner cooktop and also a cute refrigerator from the Home Depot. And so, yeah, this went in, there was no kitchens in any of the units. So 307 of this type of kitchen with these existing finishes, using a lot of our multifamily suppliers and really value engineering, the budget for the customer to ensure that he got a quality finished product here. To talk a little bit about some tips and findings. So I'm sure a number of you have heard about hotel conversion. It is a big topic, right? I would qualify this as right now as the #1 trend in multifamily renovation is getting your hands on these old hotels, old motels, and converting them into multifamily space. And so just some tips if you're looking at these spaces, these communities, these buildings. You want to make sure that the property is currently zoned appropriately for multifamily or is easily converted to ensure you can have multifamily housing in this property. You want to make sure that after you tie the property up, you want to make sure that you understand the permitting requirements, right? So I mentioned previously, we had to replace the entire electrical system as well as install a brand new sprinkler system. In this case, it was due to the age of the community, right? If you're looking at a newer property, obviously the electrical system and then the sprinklers would likely be installed, but that's something to consider. You want to work early and you want to work often with your local municipality on the permitting requirements. It's also very important to keep a healthy contingency for this project, right? And so if you are going to convert a motel, convert a hotel, there's going to be a lot of unknowns that you unearth after the project starts, right? In this project, there was 10% of original contract value in change orders, right? So $750,000 for this project in change orders. And so it's when you are putting together a budget for these multifamily conversions, hotel conversions, you want to make sure that you can maintain a healthy contingency. And then also time frame. Here, this project worked very well. We had 6 separated communities. So the owner or the investors in this property were able to coordinate really what was amounted to a more new construction lease up. So we're able to get certificate of occupancy on building 1. They were able to lease it up. We'd move on to building 2. They were able to lease it up. So when you are looking at these properties, you want to make sure that you get a good understanding of how you're going to lease this up. How quickly can you get residents in this property? How quickly can you get revenue generation on this property? So next slide, Julie. Some additional findings. Be able to be flexible. Work with your design team to value engineer the overall plan. I mentioned that this took about 1.5 years to get from start to finish. Products at the beginning of the project were not available at the end of the project. That's a good way to put it. So our flooring is a good example. The flooring that we use at the beginning of the project wasn't available or was discontinued at the end of the project. So we had to shift quickly into a different flooring. Flexibility will extend your budget due to the unforeseen change orders. One way that we were able to supplement for the owner was to provide him an alternate product, right? We chose different cabinet hardware, or we chose different light fixtures. We were able, as the general contractor, to work with our material suppliers to try to save some costs, so the burden of those change orders weren't as great as they could have been. And again, this is a major undertaking for anybody. And this is a major undertaking for the investors on this property. And if you're looking at this, a vacant motel, it is a very daunting undertaking. So relationships matter. Hire your team, commit to your team early. In this case, the owner, we were involved really early on in the phase, in the design phase. We were able to provide some suitable assistance, I would say, during the design phase. Continue your relationship building throughout the project. Play nice with your building inspectors. They will be your building inspector from the start all the way through the end. They will remember those difficult conversations in the end when you're trying to get your certificate of occupancy on building 4, let's say. Yes, price matters, but partner with a team that can provide the results that you desire, right? And then also, as my dad would say, you always pay for what you get, right? And so keep that in mind as well. Price matters in this business. I understand that. Everybody understands that. You need to make your returns that you're trying to get. But oftentimes, work with people that you enjoy working with is a good way to put that. So next slide, Julie. So then moving forward here, the rest of the presentation, I wanted to show you kind of some other things that we're seeing in the multifamily space here in Central Texas. So some additional trends we're seeing from 2020 to 2021. So right now we're currently working on a project where we're actually adding density to an existing property. So adding units to an existing multifamily property. The project is currently under permit review. So plans are drawn, layouts are already designed. We're just waiting for a permit for this project. We are converting 16 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartments in South Austin to 16 1-bedrooms and 16 studio apartments, right? So we're increasing density to assist with the property owner's investment and achieving a higher NOI for the property, right? So this one, for permitting sake, it's an estimated $400,000 project budget. And so this one I'm very interested in. We're doing the project, but we're also invested in the property too. So this is an intriguing one. So So we're seeing this here in Austin. There's a couple other student housing conversions that are being done the same way here in Austin as well. And so something else to consider when you're looking at communities. How is your unit makeup? Are you heavy with your 3-bedroom, 2 baths? Is there an opportunity to take a 120 unit community and convert some units from 3-bedroom, 2 bath, let's say, to 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and some studio apartments to add to those unit counts for you. Next slide. Some additional trends here. 2020 presented a major movement for residents to live, and I guess it's quotation marks, live, right? So they work, play, and sleep in their communities, right? So what we're seeing here in Austin is that we're seeing an effort to keep the residents at the property more, right? So live, work, play, sleep in the community, right? So package centers, we've all seen these package centers, right? So package delivery, of course, skyrocketed through COVID, but it's always been on a high level trajectory. More packages. This is a package locker. This is an Amazon hub, right? And so we see a lot of this. We're converting mail rooms into package centers here in Austin and San Antonio. Really, we seem to do 1 or 2 every quarter. We're also seeing fitness centers with an outdoor element, right? So at the bottom of the screen here, you see a fitness center with essentially an overhead door, right? So they're bringing the outdoors in, right? We saw a lot of in-home workouts. We saw a lot of outdoor workouts throughout COVID. So in this property here, they wanted to kind of appease the residents. And so they brought the outdoors in by adding this overhead door. So we've seen a lot of this here in Austin. And then something that we've seen and talked quite a bit about here in the office are these grab and go kiosks, right? And so everyone's seen these at hotels where off the side of the hotel lobby desk, you see that little grab and go where you can pick up a soda or you can pick up a snack. And so we're seeing these implemented. Now, this is a Class A implementation, right? So you're not seeing this in a Class C implementation, but it's something that can be applied to a Class C. Yes, the property manager might be the person that checks you out there. They don't, and Class C might not have an RFID scanner, but this is something that I think everyone should consider, right? How do you increase your NOI? This is a great opportunity. There's a company that we started working with here that sets these up and has the system software. So scroll down, Joe. Let's see here, additional, so pet facilities. And so we've seen a advancement in, we've done a lot of pet parks throughout the years, but now we're seeing them become more pet and people parks, right? So we're doing a dog park and we're bringing in agility equipment in the dog park, but we're also bringing in pergolas and sitting stations for people to interact with one another. We've done a lot of pet wash centers, right? So bringing more amenities into the communities. We're again converting mail centers. We're converting laundry facilities into pet washes. The picture on the left, the bottom left there, is a bike storage room that we completed recently as well.
Are you charging to use the pet wash center, or is that just an amenity that's free? What have you seen?
So what I've seen is the pet wash center is an amenity. The bike storage is a paid service. And so, the residents would be charged monthly to have a space in this bike room. Just it's very similar to a covered parking space, right?
Yeah.
Some additional trends. So the rest of this presentation talks a lot about interiors. And so I wanted to talk of where we're seeing interior renovations go. And so what we've seen in 2021 is kind of, we've brought professional design finishes on a multifamily budget, right? And so these are kind of finishes and that you're seeing in new construction homes, right? But we're doing them on a multifamily budget, right? So multicolor kitchen cabinets are a very big thing right now. We're seeing base cabinets blue and upper cabinets white. We're seeing a lot of gold and black fixture hardware. We're seeing wide plank barnwood flooring. So we're getting away from kind of that dark gray vinyl plank, and we're going into more of a barnwood color, light oak color, eye-catching backsplash. We're seeing a lot of transitioned into, we're not doing a ton of subway tile. Now we're doing something that really catches the eye. We're doing quartz countertops 100% of the time now. Class B and Class A communities, we're doing quartz. We don't do granite anymore. We do quartz countertops 100% of the time. And then we're also seeing accent walls fade away. And we're moving towards a door and trim different color scheme. So we'll see your interior base trim and your interior casing a light gray, and then we'll see we're now painting interior doors black or dark gray, right? So we're seeing that two-tone finish on the interior finish out as well. You can move to the next slide, Julie. So really quick, this slide here was part of the presentation last time, and I just want to make sure, I think it's very valuable, and I want to make sure that we go through it. So in value add budgeting, right? So oftentimes when you look at an OM, an offering memorandum, you see a budget per unit renovation. You spend this much, and this is what your return is going to be. So the broker OM CAPX budget is really just an estimated credit created by the broker used to sell the property. 9 times out of 10, this is not the actual cost to complete the project. Make sure when you're underwriting these, you get a professional opinion. Your property manager can assist with this if you're already talking to a property manager. If you need budgeting help, you'll get my contact information out after this. I'm more than happy to assist with that and give you some tips of the trade. And there'll be one right after this slide, I believe. Your contractor doesn't bid by door, and neither should you, right? Oftentimes you hear a renovation budget, well, we're going to put $5,000 in per door to renovate the units. Your general contractor doesn't bid that way, right? So $5,000 a door works for a 425 square foot unit studio, but not so well on a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot unit, right? So we want to make sure that when you are budgeting your renovations, you're not budgeting by the 125 door community, you're budgeting by total square footage of the unit interiors. Who's responsible for managing the project? You also want to understand who you're giving that management to and what fee is being charged. Oftentimes, value add renovations are managed by property managers, and they charge a construction management fee somewhere in the range of 3 to 8% of all renovation costs. So something to consider as well, that when you're coming up with your overall CAPX budget, that you have a line in there that includes a construction management fee. And then also contingency. I mentioned the contingency in the motel renovation slides, but you want to include a contingency for unknown costs that come up during the renovation. My own company, when we create a budget, when we bid work, bid renovation work, we use 5% contingency across the board on all hard costs. And I would recommend the same that you do as well. So at least 5%. Budgets. So this was I had a last presentation I did with you, Julie. I had a number of conversations about this after the call. And so wanted to give you some budget guidelines. And so the far left is a legacy unit interior renovation. So this would be your Class C apartment community, where it's a legacy unit, where there hasn't been any value add renovation completed, right? And for that, a good square foot number would be $5.50, okay? And for $5.50, you can get new flooring, you'll get paint, and then you'll get counter resurface, right? We'll spray your counters for you in your Class C apartment community. $5.50 a square foot is a good number to use there. Mid-level interior renovation, the center one, we recommend a $10 square foot budget. So what you'll get from that is you'll get the legacy unit items, the 3 bullet points there, and then you'll get cabinet painting, you'll get ceramic tile backsplash, light fixtures replaced, faucets replaced, and new blinds and appliances, right? So for $10 a square foot and your 700 square foot unit, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, you'll get those items in there. That's a good range to use for your budget. And now we move into the high-end interior renovation. And for $15, roughly $15, you get the moderate renovation, and then you also get solid surface counters, your quartz that I talked about previously. You'll get new door and bath hardware. So your doorknobs, as well as your towel bars and your toilet paper holders, will be able to get you your stainless appliance or full stainless appliances. You'll get your cabinet door fronts replaced, right? We're not replacing cabinets in multifamily. You do your door fronts, right? And then also we can work on getting you LED light upgrades. We can get you your green products, your low flow toilets, and your faucets that'll qualify for your green lending programs. And so that in itself, I think, is worth the presentation. It'll help you when you budget your CAPX renovation, when you're underwriting your deals, when you're looking at your OMs with $5,000 a door renovation budget from the brokers. And so this should help quite a bit. And then I think the last slide, Julie, it's just my contact information. So I'll leave it as, I'm in the same boat as you folks. Me and my team are underwriting deals. I mentioned previously that we invest in Alabama. And so I'm in there right with you. We talk about deals, we talk about underwriting, we talk about CAPX. So my customers are you, as I mentioned, the owners and the operators. If you have any questions about budgeting, if you have any questions about due diligence, if you have any questions about Austin, Texas, I'm more than happy to talk to you. I'm more than happy to set up a call. I'm more than happy to exchange a Slack or an email with you. That's our office phone number there as well. More than happy to talk to you via the phone. And then, yes, I am attending the Old Capital Conference. Gage Multifamily we're going to have a booth at the conference. I'll be there. My twin brother will be there, and be more than happy to chat with you.
Make sure you say hello when you go by, and say hello to
Absolutely.
the Gage, the Trepanier boys. So yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't know
absolutely.
you ended up getting a booth. So that's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a ton of information and super valuable. I'm curious if there's anybody in the house that has a question that was not covered so far. Well, let's take a couple minutes before we jump into networking. If there's any questions in the house, jump on out.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm looking at a hotel conversion in Florida, and I'm wondering if you could go more into the change orders that you came across. I mean, I typically could set aside 10% contingency.
Yeah.
But you said that you came into some interesting change orders, and because I'm in that space now, I'd like to hear, if you don't mind, what you actually came across.
Yeah, so dependable on the age of the community, right? So a lot of change orders come up through due diligence, right? So if it's a newer community, right, you'll go through the process, you'll snake out the plumbing lines, right? And so in this case, we had significant number of water line change orders. There is, of course, from a design standpoint, things change from acquisition throughout the construction phase too. So we did have several design changes, right? Customer wanted to replace the exterior doors throughout, so we had those as well. Each deal is going to be different, I would say. If you're carrying a 10% contingency, that's a fantastic starting point. That's going to help you catch a lot of what you might not see during the offering, the contract, and then the due diligence phase. And so in terms of if I was in your shoes on the ownership standpoint, investor standpoint, my recommendation is that when you get estimates from contractors, thoroughly review them. In this industry, oftentimes low price matters. Oftentimes you go to the last page to kind of see what you're going to pay. Thoroughly review them, make sure that your scopes of work are attached to any contract that you use. And then also, make sure that you are getting open and honest and constant daily communication from your contractor, right? So.
Nice, thank you so much. Who else has a question? Marcus, you have a question.
Yes, hello. I have a interesting question here. So, Rich, have you ever seen a commercial building that has been zoned for hospitality converted from a commercial building into a multifamily or like an Airbnb type of multifamily building?
So that was going to be a little bullet point on one of the slides, right? So I believe that's what's coming next, right? So you're talking about office space?
Right. So there's a building that's near me that is only 40% occupied, but it's a box.
Yeah.
It's a concrete box that's easily converted into 500, 600 square foot Airbnb type of short-term rentals.
Yeah. So we haven't done that yet, but it is coming, right? There's a plethora of office space that is sitting empty around town. And I think that is the next phase. Again, on the front end, my recommendation is obviously learn how the property is zoned, work with the city to see if that can be rezoned. Obviously, office space likely isn't zoned for multifamily or residential at all, and to ensure that you can make that change prior, right? My recommendation is get some advice prior, work with the experts to ensure that you can get it zoned prior to putting something like that under contract.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Quentin, you have a question.
Yeah, I'm looking at doing some due diligence on 90-unit motel conversion that has already taken place. The previous owner had converted it from motel use to residential use. I've checked with the city to make sure that the zoning and everything is appropriate. But I was kind of curious, from your previous project, whether you had any additional due diligence that you might do outside of the typical ESA or other due diligence that you would normally do on a multifamily building.
So what's the age of the community?
It's quite an older building. It actually has a heritage component to it, but the motel components are probably the 60s.
Okay, so systems, obviously you'll spend a ton of time on the systems, right? I assume probably at that age, we're talking about a chiller system. And so I would recommend partnering or working with probably in this case, a true mechanical contractor that can come in and look at the system complete. Age, my recommendation would also be bring in a competent roofer to come in and inspect the existing roof system, ensure that you don't have multiple layers of roofing systems in there. My feedback would be spend a lot of time on the systems to ensure at that age that they're in appropriate condition and they have a life cycle during your hold period, right? So. Something that's been converted. The other thought I would have, not on the physical due diligence standpoint, but something that's been previously converted. From your standpoint, I would recommend working with the city, reaching out to the city to ensure any kind of building permit has been closed. If there's any outstanding permits, to ensure that they've been closed completely as well. So,
thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with Tommy Brandt, and then we've got to get onto our networking.
Sure.
Tommy.
Yeah. Thanks, Julie. And
sure.
Thanks, Rich. During your presentation, you mentioned that in newer buildings, you may not have issues with lack of sprinkler systems or antiquated electrical systems. And I was just wondering if there was like a specific year that would be a safe year.
My thought there, or the answer essentially is, it's not the year of the community, it's the municipality where the community or the hotel exists, right? What building code are they following? What year code are they following, right? In your community where you live, this property might be considered grandfathered in, right? So you might not need to upgrade the electrical system. You might not need to install a sprinkler system. Of course, from an electrical standpoint, the existing system needs to carry the load that you're going to bring in, right? So you need to ensure that when you're designing, working with an architect, if it is a motel conversion, that the load that's able to be carried can handle a microwave, it can handle a cooktop, it could handle a potential dishwasher, right? So my recommendation there is it's going to be dictated by the city, but also your ultimate plan as well.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
I agree.
Yeah.
Good question. Rich, thank you so much, and apologize
Yeah.
for, the little bit of
I'm
a,
sure it's me.
you're
Yeah.
good. I know things happen
Been a
in
long
Austin
day.
that, things don't happen anywhere else. So, but thank
Yeah.
you again for your expertise in all of this. And I know that a lot of people will have questions. Make sure that when you call Rich or you contact him, you know what, his time is really valuable as yours is. And, if there's something that you can help Rich with, whether it's to find him another deal in Huntsville or Birmingham, that's
Yeah.
always helpful. So I want to thank you again, Rich. If you want to stay or if you need to go, I want to again thank you for joining us. It's been invaluable. So, and again, thank you everybody for staying with us. Typically we jump off, but I did want to make sure that Rich shared all of his information because I think it is so applicable to so many of us that are trying to take these deals down and get them sized correctly. Again, the square footage is pretty key. How many of us have underwritten and it really is for $2,000, you're getting maybe a faucet. I know that's crazy, but you really do need to take into consideration a lot of the new construction costs since COVID. Those are not going down anytime soon. I know we have seen some reductions, but not across the board. So